ladies and gentlemen. This is Modern Investing, IBM Pod TV program every Wednesday. And my name is Sasha Star. I would like to introduce my co host, Peter Bennett,
Hey,
uh, former professional from Wall Street. How are you doing today?
oh, good. Everything's good, Sasha.
Yeah, good. We are going through a challenging stage of
Oh,
the
yeah.
market now. So I don't know. In my cards, it's not really time for capitulation. It, it still has to go down quite a bit for that to happen. So maybe we are in a trading range, most likely, because Monday it was up day on the market, specifically Nasdaq. Then yesterday and today it's going down big time, raising whole Monday's gain and more. So, but nothing indicates to me that this is actually a collapse of the market yet. It's just not there yet. I don't think so. It should come later, but I always can be wrong. What do you think, Peter?
Um, you, I think it's a very dangerous time.
It
I
is.
mean, I said last week, it's kind of like holding the hot potato. Once it starts dropping, there could be a huge panic. And I guess I have a few points. One, to me, this is the most uncertain time in decades, for the market. So no, I can't really say short term where it's going, but I don't like the general feel of the market at all. Um, I have a lot of quotes and everything that it will tell the viewer why, this is an uncertain time and this is a scary time. Michael Fredericks, first of all, I saw this in Barron's, he manages BlackRock funds, and he's saying the forecasts on Wall Street now are all over the place because of the uncertainty. So he's saying for 24, some people are forecasting the 10-year at 1.7 and others are at 4.5. That's a huge spread. Some people are saying the economy in 24 will be +3 GDP. Some people are saying -1. I tend to think negative. I think that there's too much going on. I think it's going to be much worse. But here's some, and just to sum it up, what we've been saying on the show for a long, long time, a lot earlier than other people. But basically, the problems is oil and energy, inflation, and the Federal Reserve, and how they're going to have to react to it. So here's 8 different reasons why this is a scary time, and then I'll tell you what I'm doing. So, first of all, the Dow transports now are down 6 days in a row, and that tends to be a leading indicator. So that alone could tell you this could be the beginning of the drop, if there's going to be one. And I think there is. But in a lot of these reasons are fundamental, and some are opinions. But so the last week I said the International Energy Agency says we may be headed for the biggest supply crisis in decades, and uh, that's alone, I mean, if it's going to be that bad, energy is going to go through the roof. A lot of forecasts are coming in at 135 a barrel to over 200 a barrel. Stephen Short says it's 17%, and he's a pretty good analyst, oil analyst I've seen over the years. He says it's 17%, it'll be over $200 a barrel in the summer. So if it gets anywhere near there, people are going to be shocked by that. A lot of people will be. I mean, we're talking about adding many dollars a gallon, maybe $3 a gallon more to the price of gas. People are looking at 5 now, maybe adding to 7 or 8, or maybe we'll see over 8, maybe, but so that's the market's not going to like that. And then you look, Charlie Munger, who works for with Warren Buffett, and everybody knows Warren Buffett, but
Yeah.
he's like his number 2 guy, or they work together, and he's predicting a painful crash. That's a quote. Jamie Dimon from Chase Manhattan Bank, who's a pretty sharp guy, to say the least, here's his quote: "The Federal Reserve poses a risk to the economy and could move interest rates, quote, significantly higher than the market predicts." And this is what I'm concerned with. I mean, Larry Summers is saying, and Larry Kudlow, both of these guys are on opposite sides of the political spectrum pretty much. And they're both saying rates have to go much, much higher. Kudlow is saying they have to hit 6 to slow inflation. I don't think that's true, but I think it has to go much higher. And Summers is saying it has to be 2% less than inflation, which makes some sense in a way, because if inflation's running at 8, then if they have the rates at 4, the real rates are negative, not still positive, you have to start approaching the real rates maybe to slow it down. But nobody knows again where the Fed's going to go. But every single week or month, we're hearing more and more aggressive talk. They didn't do the 0.5% last time, but now they're talking about doing 0.5%, maybe a couple of times this year. Um, the San Francisco Fed member was usually a dove, but she's turned much more hawkish now. And they listened. I'm sure they heard Larry Summers saying they're so far behind the curve, because they are. And so this is, again, as they tighten, who knows the effects of what that'll be. This is a quote from a guy named Dennis Fogarty, who was a client of mine years ago. And I get his emails. He's talking about the real estate market in Naples, Florida. And now mortgage rates have hit today. They're going over 5% for the 30-year now. This is a shock to the market, to
Yes,
the
it is.
real estate market. So he says about Naples, after 2 years of unstoppable sales records, the top could finally be reached. A 30-year interest rate is now almost 5%. And he's saying if a buyer could qualify for a $500,000 loan, now they could only qualify for a $400,000 mortgage. And he's saying only really cash buyers are in the market now. He's losing a lot of his other buyers, which, by the way, I heard today is 25% of buyers nationally are now cash buyers in the United States. So there's a lot of cash buyers. So I don't think the market's going to collapse in housing, but it's going to slow housing. And
No,
and that, at least, which might be a good thing if it stops going up so much, because people can't afford it. But then so you add that, and then this is one last quote from Alan Blinder, who's a very famous economist. He was a federal economist. He says that the Federal Reserve very rarely has nailed a perfect soft landing on raising rates. In other words, a lot of times they're behind the curve, or they overdo it, they underdo it. But he said in 8 out of 11 tightening cycles, there were recessions. So, I mean, I said this months ago, and when people weren't saying this, but I see it even clearer now. I think we will have recession. And that's to say, it's not all gloom and doom. It's just where you're invested if you're an investor. So you need to be very defensive. And I've been saying that for a long time. And basically, you need dividend stocks that, uh, especially those with low debt. And the only place I can see where really to be where you can be offensive and defensive is energy, which I love, and I have, because you look at like the pipelines. I have 20% MPLX, 5.5% EPD, 4% now USAC. I sold a little bit off of that and I bought a little more EPD. But these are areas where they can keep growing even at almost any rates. And these are natural gas oriented, and you can get a high rate of return for a decade or 2 decades, get all your money back. And then there's also aggressive, type of things. I'm now 1% Devon Energy and 1/3% CNQ, which is a Canadian company, and a tiny bit 1/8% BSM. Now I just added those because I need to balance everything else. Because if oil keeps going up, even the tech, which I like Google and Microsoft, um, and Amazon. Um, I like those companies, and I have different either options or shares, but everything's going to be affected if rates go to 4 or 5%, as we saw last time. So I think they'll fight through it. Those companies, they have very low debts, but it's really about energy. What do you think, Sasha?
well, I think that energy is a great place to be, especially in the last few months. It probably will go still higher. Um, I'm always concerned that everything what we are discussing right now, it's all well known to the market players, and therefore it probably already built up in the stock prices, energy prices, and many other things. But again, there could be a black swan at any point. The situation with Ukraine and Russia is very uncertain, and
Oh, it's
it's
very bad. I
not
mean,
getting any better.
they're saying this could be an unlimited war in time, or it could be in 2 weeks, but
Yeah,
settled. But
exactly. That's
it
very
doesn't
good.
look to me. I mean, when it started, I said a couple of times on the show. Then when World War II started, they said it would last a week or two, and I said nobody knows this. Now it seems to be a real stalemate, and it seems like, at least at the moment, Putin and Zelensky have totally opposite viewpoints, and Zelensky's not going to give a lot. Putin's not going to give a lot. I wish they could settle. I think if they had some good negotiator in the middle, maybe they could get somebody to. I could think of a few solutions. In other words, it could happen. Look, Putin could say, "Look, I'll take some of the areas in Ukraine permanently, and you can take the rest and join NATO. Maybe and I'll get out." That to me would be fair, something along those lines, or But Zelensky's now seems to be taking the tack. I'm not giving anything, or maybe it's just negotiating. So who knows? But you know what? Here's another point, though. Economically, even if they settle tomorrow, which it would be wonderful they would. The problem is a lot of the damage for a long time is done. See, energy was going to go up anyway, even if Russia was there, because the world needs more and more energy, and there was going to be high energy even without Russia. I predicted that before Russia, and it was already going up before Russia. But now, even if Russia gets back in the game, people aren't going to be anxious to say, okay, I'm moving my oil operations back there. Shell and all these companies, a lot of them are going to say,
It's not going to happen.
well, that's what I'm saying. It could take a decade to reestablish relations and bring back the workers. Everything's disrupted, just like Venezuela is a perfect example. When the American companies pulled out of Venezuela and they took it over, it all went into disrepair. And now they don't have the staff to bring energy back. So I'd like to just bring up three other points here, about, if we can, bring up the three charts that I sent, because this just shows you how defensive and offensive energy is. So first, can we bring up the global energy expectations, if we can? I don't know if the show will do that or not. I sent that over there. Or I'll just hold it up if we can get that off the air.
Yeah, it's very interesting situation where we are now, and
Yeah.
it seems to me that I still do believe that it's kind of a trading range. But however, here is a chart that you wanted to look at.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not actually the
No.
particular one I sent, but
Hmm.
anyway, I'll just tell you what I'm seeing here. This is um, 2019, 2040 predictions for oil and energy use. And everybody has this idea, I understand why they want to reduce, carbon, because is a potential threat. I've seen the arguments, and,
Okay.
I could buy into it that, there's man-made problems and it should be addressed. But the only way this is going to be addressed is not the way they're doing it. It's ridiculous, because what they're doing is they're saying, well, we're going to shut down U.S. energy, like Biden's doing that. But then it moves to China, or it moves to Russia or Venezuela. Or we have the most strict refining standards. So if somebody burns a gallon of oil, uh, it could be from the U.S. or it could be from Russia or Venezuela or the Middle East. And so by pushing it out, it's just creating more pollution. And it's better off in Canada or whatever, except for, I have to say, the heavy oil isn't so good. But the the point is, so they're forcing the oil out, and the pollution was the worst last year ever. But the oil companies should be have more money to work on this, because they are trying to decarbonize, and that'll be really where the solution will be: technology and carbon sequestration and other things. So this shows, though, global energy expectations from the International Energy Agency, and they're showing that in 2040, instead of 40% oil, as opposed to, this compares 2019 to 2040, it's going to be only 37%. So they've dropped 3% use of oil in 20 years. But the actual usage of oil is up from 80 million to 90 million a year, a day, because the world is consuming much more oil. And so bioenergy is growing, and renewables, but they can't even keep up with the demand. And this is because on this chart from the International Agency, it shows that the population without access to clean fuels and technologies for cooking, just for cooking, and the basics, driving, cooking, is 3 billion people. So if the world is becoming more of a global place, and people are getting more access to information and wealth around the world, but those people are going to want to eat with, they're not going to stop. want to use fire for the rest of their lives if they can get access to energy. And then finally, this is a chart from the U.S. Energy uh, Information Department. Oh, no, sorry, this is a cross of EIA and OPEC, and it shows average U.S. crude supply scenarios, and it shows that from now to 2025, maybe we'll add on average 1 million barrels a day, which is not a lot compared to the shortfalls already and everything else going on. So there's, I mean, it's a utility. It's like food, energy. That's my point, and it's not
Yeah,
changing, even
absolutely.
though people think it will.
Absolutely. Speaking about energy, probably you've noticed that Chinese companies which are relying on buying Russia's oil and gas, they are not going to renew their contract. They will keep this present contracts for another 2 3 months whenever they expire, and they're not
Oh, really?
contracts. Yeah, I just read it
You're
just
saying Chinese companies will not renew the contract with Russia? So that
no,
was their one of their few outlets. So they're actually not only gonna not they're gonna cut their usage in 3 months. You're saying?
absolutely, because
Well, good
Russia
for
is selling
China,
right now. Yeah, right now Russia is selling its oil at 30% discount.
right?
And China was buying, of course, a lot of oil, but all that will come to an end in about 2 3 months. And it's independent whether the war will be over or whatever, who is
It's
winning
crazy.
or so on. And yeah, yeah, it is.
I
And
mean, it's like, what is Putin thinking or not? You wonder, does he get information? He
there's
must be
something.
getting information, but is he just stubborn? I mean,
His
how can he
access to information is very limited. He is not using
really?
internet. Yeah, he's watching his own TV programs, First Channel Russian.
You think he doesn't know what's going? You literally think he doesn't
No,
know what's
people
going on?
who are, he's in contact with maybe 2 3 people.
He's a world leader. You don't think he has he doesn't know what people on Fox are saying, or or people in the United States are
Well,
saying, or anybody in the world is saying
he,
almost.
but again, without access to internet, to television channels like Fox News or CNN or any other Western source,
Yeah.
he is under influence of 2 3 people who are reporting to him.
Wait, you don't think
Those
he uses
people,
the internet?
though Putin personally is not using internet.
He
Internet
doesn't?
is available. He's not using it. So
Oh my gosh, he's in a
the
vacuum, you're
people
saying.
who are reporting to him, they are reporting the news only those that Putin wants to hear.
I know that. That's a
That,
problem with a lot of leadership, yeah.
that's a problem. Yes, exactly.
But
So
he
that's
has to know. He has to. Well, he knew enough to. I'm just looking for evidence one way or the other. I don't know what Putin does or doesn't watch, and I don't haven't investigated that. But I mean, he knew enough that he fought. He locked up, I guess, his defense minister, and he punished some of his other people. So he knew he was not doing as well as he thought. I mean, I think he
um,
he thought he was going to walk in and 3 days everything is going to be hunky dory, right?
but you see, it's all based on a much deeper situation where Putin entrapped himself. And if he's serious enough to order a genocide on Ukrainian people, because what's happened
Yeah.
now in Bucha and few other Ukrainian cities that were recaptured by Ukrainians, I'm not even aware that Putin knows about it. I, I really, I'm not aware of that.
I've got to think, and I don't have a clue, but I've got to think. Look, Putin just was in the KGB. The KGB is the information business.
Yeah,
It
right.
seems like he would be the kind of guy who would try to know everything and not know. You would think, unless he's totally like, he's clearly not seen. I mean, the guy he grew up in the information business. To him, he should know all the information from his.
But
That's his
he
power.
was he was a KGB person before he became a
Mhm.
president. When
Right.
he became a president, and shortly thereafter, he was under heavy influence of ultra nationalists and fascists,
Right.
type of people like writer Prokhanov, philosopher and historian Dugin, Alexander Dugin, who speaks fluently almost all European languages, and who
Right.
developed new social theory or so on. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but he's under very heavy influence of that. So he became so indoctrinated by his own beliefs, by his
Right.
advisors, or so on. So he became now more of Ayatollah than KGB man. Now
But
he
even if you're the Ayatollah, you would think he would know. I mean, look, the Russian economy is potentially in collapse very soon, which won't be good for the world either in a sense. Who knows what investments they have or other ties financially. This could also cause some problems for some, but although obviously a lot of, other institutions are cutting ties quickly with Russia, but still, he's got to know a lot. And unless he's either incompetent totally or and it's hard
No,
to know.
by now he's absolutely incapable of running the state. He's getting it down 50, 60 years backwards, and
Well, I see
the
that. That's why I
consequences.
can't understand why he wouldn't settle, or
He
maybe
wants
he's a
to.
chess player, and
He's, he's
maybe this is
worried.
his strategy, and in a few weeks, maybe he's convincing people that he's never gonna give up, and that's his strategy. And then he comes back and says, "Okay, this is what I want at the negotiating table." But you would think the time for negotiation is here because
No,
one, he's
he's
losing ground.
definitely he's just not there. He believes that Russia is kind of a fortress that can actually
Really?
go against all world.
Wow.
He's not worried about it all. It will withstand even if the price of oil will go down to $10 a barrel. He will withstand if all food prices will collapse or going in stratosphere. He believes that he has to create his own legacy, and that one is to recreate a Soviet Union. And Ukraine is the question whether
Oh
he
yeah.
do it or not. Without Ukraine, there is no Soviet Union of any
Well,
kind.
let me just throw this out. We shouldn't spend too much time on this because it's more an economic show. But look, if I'm Putin, and I'm going to assume he's really sharp, and not, because I think let's just assume that for a second.
Okay,
First of all, I would say I would want the world to wonder: Am I crazy, or am I, going to stay with this forever? Could I even, launch a nuclear attack? Would I use a tactical nuclear weapon? This would be in my favor to have the world think this. I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep this war going for 20 years. Now I go to the negotiating table, and this is the strongest point I could have as a
but they
negotiator.
but
Wait,
Peter,
just follow me out. So if I'm going to the negotiating table, this is, although now his losing so much isn't helping, but he's saying if he's never giving up and he's going to keep sending forces and killing people, which is terrible. But I'm just saying this gives him some more negotiating power if he's clever, and if he's, so maybe in 3 weeks all of a sudden he says, okay, now I'll come to the table. I want something, and he should be able to get something. Plus, then he comes out maybe a hero with the, if he gets agreement that Croatia and maybe some of the others are going to be permanent part of the Soviet
they're
Union.
so far apart in their
Oh, I
positions.
know.
Negotiations is a waste of time.
Well,
So the
Zelensky's
war.
saying I'll go 20 years.
No,
Apparently.
it's not going. No, it's not going for 20 years. Putin has no resources to going for 20 years.
Oh, yeah, that could be true.
If Ukraine will get, and I believe it start slowly getting the real arms. I'm talking about heavy artillery. I'm talking about
Hmm.
tanks. I'm talking about the anti-warship
Right.
missiles. Once Ukraine will get that, they will
Hmm.
get Russians out of Ukraine. Period. Full stop.
Wow. Well, then what will Putin do then?
Ukrainians are much better fighters. Russians are avoiding all kind of face-to-face
Well, the
conflict.
soldiers are demoralized, I'm sure. I mean, you hear the stories of them shooting themselves to get out of the war. A lot of them are like, why am I killing my brothers? I don't want to fight this fight. I just want to survive. So,
No, no, Putin is clever, at least in the respect that he sends very little really Russians into the conflict zone. He sends people from Siberia region, like Buryats,
yeah.
Yakuts. They're not Russian people, really. They're Asian
Right. But I
people.
don't think I mean, from what I've heard, a lot of them are demoralized. They don't want to fight, and you can't win a war. But look at all the areas he does have. So now he's saying he's going to pull out of Kiev because clearly he's not. getting to win that. He couldn't get any ground, but now he's going to focus on the South, which is what he think he wants anyway. He wants
Peter,
Donetsk
this is
in,
already a month and a half of war. Look at this map. Show me
yeah.
at least one important city that he got, except Kherson, which was not really defended so well. But if you are talking about North Ukraine, where he started offensive from Russia and from Belarus,
Mhm.
and what are the results? Zero. Look at
Right.
this.
Well, no, that's well. I have to point out that look at all the red areas. I know that was initial, but you know what? Those are the areas that he wants. Basically, when he negotiates, he captured the areas he wants. Basically, more or less. It's not exact, but this area of Donetsk, and certainly Crimea, which he already has, basically. But he wants agreement that he can keep it and whatever. So I mean, who knows? We'll see where it goes. But
Yeah,
in any way, look, this is from an economic standpoint, though. This is just on top of all the other problems. Energy
absolutely.
was always going to be a problem anyway because the world needs more energy, and everybody's assuming that um, we're just going to switch to renewables right away, and it's going to take decades to do it. And
Absolutely.
even the electric cars, first of all, they use energy anyway. They use natural gas or something to power the utilities. So it's not like you're getting rid of energy. It's just cleaner energy, maybe than burning gas, but it
Mhm.
still uses a lot of energy. So that's why these companies are safe. I want to cover a quick dividend stock.
Yeah, of course, because there, even today, there my at least my dividend stocks all in green, really doing so well.
Yeah,
Altria,
I like most pretty
um,
much everything I have is done either flat or up. I mean,
yeah,
it's all.
BTI
As a matter
is,
of fact, I'm at a portfolio high right now, which isn't bad.
yeah, they're going
Um,
up to 2-3%
and that's with some losses
even
in tech, by
today.
the way, which I still believe in, but those options in tech got hurt, but the energy and the other, safer dividend stocks made up for it right away. So,
Yeah, actually, I would like to mention. I wanted to talk about Pfizer, but everybody knows about the stock, so I don't believe that I will add some kind of inside information that will be
right.
absolutely staggering. But even in the daily today, when everything is down, even energy is down today. But Pfizer is up. It's just fantastic company. I expect that this year there must be a huge buyback of its shares and probably increase of dividends. So this is a stock that in a time like this, now of course its dividend is not great anymore. It's only slightly, actually it's lower than 3%, unfortunately.
Yeah, I
But
know. I remember when it was five, but that's the problem with a lot of my dividend stocks, and it's good and bad. I mean, even some of like my energy stocks, I paired a little bit, and even SRTF, which I spoke about last week. But I looked at it and said, "Wait a minute, it's 15% of my portfolio, and oil's going through the roof potentially." So I brought it down to 10%. Slate Grocery REIT because that's my favorite REIT by far. It's very defensive, but yeah, that's a problem. I mean, it's good and bad, but you always have to work on the portfolio because even if you do well, because which is not I'm complaining, but I'm just saying the stock let's say a stock doubles, then your dividend yield is half, and you have to start looking at it and say, wait a minute, is this quite as a good an investment now? But
well, by that time they will increase their dividends or they will buy
well,
back.
that's true over time, but
Look,
it's
look,
usually not
even
that.
if they will buy back substantial amount of shares, that automatically will increase dividends. I see there is a resistance about $60 a share for Pfizer. So,
Yeah, I'm always nervous about the. If not for the government, I would love to be in more biotech and Pfizer and some of the others. But I'm always concerned that as Medicare deficits get squeeze the government, which is going to happen. I mean, Medicare is going into deficit in 2026 or sooner. By the way, I was on Economics Monday, and I've seen this before, but I heard it even from David Walker, the controller, that it might be much sooner that, and I've seen reports, they don't know, it hasn't come out yet, the new report, but it might be 24, even sooner, that Medicare is going to start pulling money in instead of the government taking the money and
mhm.
pouring it out. And the rest of the world's in the same situation. I always have to mention that because they promised free medical care for these aging populations. But the problem is, where are they going to look first? When the government is okay, we have to print too much money. We don't have any money for anything discretionary anymore. they're going to go. I think they're going to go after the drug companies. Now, the drug companies can adapt by saying, "Okay, we're going to cut back on research." So they'll probably do well. That makes me think, actually, maybe I should look at the drug companies again because there's so few areas. So I'm going to start based on what you just said. Actually, you just swayed me. I just talked myself into it.
No, no, no.
I'm
Uh,
going to look at a little bit because you know what? It wouldn't hurt to have a bit in that, just a small percentage in drugs because there's so few defensive sectors that could perform well. Right now. I think
Peter, I would.
most things are going to get creamed probably in the next 6 months.
Okay, I'd like to make name two other ideas that I'm looking at.
Sure.
One is, of course, you're aware of TZA. It's an inverse three times bear shares. Um, they're not to hold. It's a really trading idea.
Mhm.
However, in a market like that, it can do big movements because it's three times bear. So the way to play it, I would think, if the market will continue to go down for another couple of days, I don't believe that that will happen, but it may. I would actually start selling it short because there would be at some point
Oh, you
reversal.
mean you? Oh, yeah, by either short the market or go through TZA, right, as a way to short the market.
Just that I would look into it. And another one, I just ran across a new idea which I'm following up, and I may actually get some stock today because it's down about 7%. It's a small company by the name Lilian. The symbol is LILM, like mother.
No, I don't know that one. What is it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you never heard about that. So this is a company that is doing trials. It's a European company doing trials in Spain, already the second trial of how I would call it. Um,
Hmm.
it's a plane for large cities where the traffic is prohibitive, but you can fly a very small plane. Basically, it's kind of in city travel, and it seems to me that they have very good financials if you can investigate it, and
Wow.
it will be a screaming buy if it will go under $4. It's now
So these
four.
are like almost like car planes. You're saying?
Yeah, something like that. It's now what 476.
Wow.
Um, it was much higher just a few months ago. It went down. Even yesterday it was 525
Do
even.
you think they have a lot of growth prospects? Is that why you like it, or what?
I think it's a speculative stock. I wouldn't put more than probably 0.5% or maybe
Sure.
maximum 1%. And I wouldn't scoop it at once. I would just buy a little bit today, waiting for it will maybe go down to $4 next day or two if the market will continue to go
No, I'll
down.
have to. I'll definitely study that stock this week.
Yeah, yeah. Take a look. I think it's pretty
I've
good.
got one, but it's a more of a fund. It's the XLP, which is an ETF. That's a type of mutual fund, and it's consumer staples. And consumer staples is a historically a very decent or very good place to be during high inflation or medium inflation. If it's super high inflation, it still could get hurt in the short run. But I went to
Mhm.
2%. I've been done very well with RHS for a long time, but I didn't like their mix anymore because I looked at their cash flow actually, and it was negative year over year on their holdings. So, but this one, so if you look at the fund, it's price to cash flow is 17. So it's earning about over 5% cash flow, which isn't great, but isn't terrible. But these are consumer staples. But the sales growth year over year is almost 7%. So they're pretty solid companies. And their cash flow growth is 2%. So it's all going in the right direction. I've looked at these companies, a lot of them have debt, but I don't think that, look, if they collapse, there's not going to be much left. Because you look at the mix, and I like the mix now of this fund. So it's Procter and
Yes.
Gamble, which is a staple, 15%. Costco, 10%. I'm rounding everything down to the nearest. Coca-Cola, 10. Pepsi, 9. Philip Morris, 4. Walmart, 4. Mondelez, 4. Altria, 4. Colgate Palmolive, 3. Estee Lauder, 3. So these are company, these are companies that you look and say, look, at 20 years, they're probably all going to be there. Sooner or later, they'll probably grow. They can handle some inflation. They can pass some on. It's a
Peter,
defensive kind of stock, and it's still yielding over 2%. The whole fund. I think 2.3.
Peter, I would turn your attention to a company by the name Qualcomm. It's trading now at 11 times earnings with tons of cash on its balance
Okay.
sheet. And it's in a semiconductor. I think believe now talking about this fund, what you just talked about. What is the wisdom if you know all their large holdings? All of them are well-known
Right.
names. What's the wisdom of buying fund instead of just individual names, particularly those that you really like?
Well, because look, I don't want to. I could just buy all these. I could own. I think it owns about 33 stocks. I could
I'll
buy them all.
concentrate on five, six well-known stocks.
So I'm paying a percentage for them to do it. But you're right. Theoretically, I could own 33. But you know what? I don't want to spend all my crowd my whole portfolio with that. I'll pay a little percentage to have them manage it and pick the companies and and everything because. But you're right. I owned P&G for a little while, and then I sold it. I'm not even sure I like P&G, but
I
I
never
might.
liked that stock. So, in my opinion, it's too boring. And
Well, you know what? Their sales were up 7% this year, and they're the kind of company that, and they did kind of restructure themselves. They sold some of their slower brands, but it's the kind of stuff that like I use some of their products, and I'm like, I'm not switching. And if they raise it 10 cents or 50 cents, I'm still going to pay. So, and I think most consumers are like that. They're good marketers. But again, if it was only P&G, I did decide to sell that, but. And I would rather they were 10% P&G, but because it's Costco, Coke, Walmart, Mondelez, which I owned a little while too, and then I decided to sell that. I don't know who the winners and losers are going to be, but I do know that out of those 33 companies, a lot will be there in 20 years. They'll probably keep growing in 20 years. If inflation kicks up now, they could be hurt big time. But it's only 2% of my portfolio, and it's part of a balanced, approach to, have some defensive stocks.
I think all what it does for you, it's just an alternative to cash. You see,
Right.
in my situation, I have high yield dividend stocks, and it doesn't fit there. It pays only what
No,
two.
it does not.
It
It
does
is an alternative to cash, absolutely.
absolutely
But you
okay.
know what? In this
Now
market, I just say things are so high now that it's harder and harder to find anything that's really aggressive that still feels safe. Which it used to be
yeah,
easy. When Pfizer was 5, it was like, okay, you know what, that stock's not going down much. But now when it's everything's up inflated so much, there's a lot of room to drop back, and there's not a lot of room to rise, I think. But it might be a slow climb the wall of worry. But you know what? When I look at the fundamentals again of inflation, interest rates, who knows where this is going, where the Fed will have to go. But I'm very cautious, and so a
absolutely
lot
these
of cash.
days.
I've never had so much cash. I have cash in my IRAs now, cash in my Roth, cash in not all. I mean, I have, I'm still 32% energy, believe it or not. But yeah, and that's paring it back but I believe in the safety of these MLPs, because again, if my if I heat my house, they've got to send gas, and I don't see any fundamental changes in the market. So, natural gas is very safe.
Okay, so as long as you're safe and you have
I hope
conservative
so.
investments, preservation of capital is by far the most important in this challenging times.
Oh, yes.
I would like to thank you very much for participation in today's program, and we'll see you again next Wednesday. Thank you very much. It's IBM Pod TV
Bye bye.
Financial Show. Bye bye.